I'm Jess Dakotas.
And I'm Nick Koziel. Welcome to That Sounds Terrifying, the podcast where we share terrifying stories, we share listener experiences, and we visit virtually some of the most haunted places in the United States and the world.
Hi everyone. Welcome to That Sounds Terrifying. We have a special guest today, Pradip Ananda. He is in my band. I'm in a band.
She's in a band,
So,
man.
he's in my band.
So rock and roll.
He let me into his band, and that was very nice of him. And he's a really amazing drummer, very, very talented. And I did see that you have guitars on your wall, so I'm assuming you dabble in that too.
I, Dabble it might even be generous. My brother is the guitarist, and like I think I get his hand-me-downs that he was like, I don't feel like moving with these, so just keep them, and they've just stuck around. So threw them on the wall to get them out of the way.
Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, I dabble in guitar as well.
There
So,
you go.
I do not. I do
yeah.
not. I
I felt
Yes.
like I
dabble with
saw
other
you with a
people playing
ukulele
guitar.
one time.
I
Oh,
do I do play ukulele.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
member of the string family.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Just a
like
matter of
into
time.
five strings and I just can't.
Yeah,
I
too many.
no.
Very
Yeah.
confusing.
I have four fingers and an
Yeah,
opposable thumb and
we actually have another guest with us
four
with
string.
with you,
You
Jess, right?
do. Yeah, this is Lucy. So if you're watching, yeah, I have my dog Lucy with me and she's very clingy. So she's she's got to be with me, otherwise she's gonna start barking. So yeah. But we're very excited because Pradeep, you love Halloween, which
I
is something
do.
I didn't know when I joined the band. So tell us about your spooky adventures.
Well, yeah, as you said, I love Halloween. I love all things spooky. I mean, I just love the vibe around that time of year. I think upstate New York, especially having lived in Florida for 12 years, like
Mm.
the vibe is just different down there. Halloween isn't the same, the seasons aren't the same. And I remember I came back up here in like 2013 and it was like, bam, okay, we're back in fall. I had that love of Halloween again. It just puts you in that I don't know, that feeling of like it just feels good this time of year. But yeah, I mean, I've loved it since I was a kid. I've loved like all things spooky, and I think as I've listened to past episodes, you guys lean more towards sometimes the paranormal, the spiritual area of it. Um, and I feel like I've had a couple encounters on that, but yeah, I mean, it's just similar to the guitars, I guess. It's something I
Dabble.
dabble in, you know?
Yeah,
It's our word of the day, Jess.
Yeah.
dabble.
Dabble. It
Yeah.
sounds like a new episode title too.
Yeah, it sure
I'll write
does.
that
Last time it
down.
was I digress. This time it's we dabble.
Yeah, D words.
We
Yeah.
dabbled into it. So yeah, we have spooky stories, but you said that you have some chilling tales as well, something that just made you got some chills up your spine when they happened. Do you want to share your first one?
Sure. So the first one's a little more low key, but my wife's family has a house in the Adirondacks. It's a little cabin, and we would go up there a couple times a year, and nothing huge. But I remember one night, go to bed, and it's probably middle of the night, and I wake up and I can see movement off by the door. Like where I sleep is the side of the bed furthest from where the door is. So I wake up and I see movement to the door, and I think like my wife's getting up to go to the bathroom or something like that. Like I said, middle of the night, and the person just kept moving. Like I see this figure and it's just moving, almost like it's, walking in place.
Ugh.
And so I'm watching and I was like trying to clear my eyes because probably like 2 a.m. just trying to figure that out. And so suddenly it was like, babe, you okay? And I hear nothing back in response. And I went to get up on my arm to like just see, and I feel her next to me. So she's still in the bed next to me, and I'm watching as what I'm assuming is this figure. And so now I'm looking a little more closely, and it looks like the vague outline of a male figure. And then I start to see some details about the clothing that they're wearing. And really, all they're doing is just standing there, and it's almost like they're walking in place. And they're wearing like, I'm trying to describe how the clothing was. If you remember, like back in the 90s, people would wear these coats that were almost like a patchwork, like of geometric shapes that were stitched together.
Yeah.
And so it
Yeah.
looked like that, had, kind of a taller gentleman, brownish hair. And so I'm watching it, it's just like, this is strange. All right. I don't feel freaked out. I don't feel like that cold chill or anything. There was nothing about it that felt menacing, but I was just like, all right. So now I'm starting to like look a little closer, and then it just sort of like dissipates into whatever. The world goes away.
Into nothing. Yeah.
Yep. And I
Wow.
just think to myself, all right, that was maybe I'm just tired. So go back to bed, and I wake up the next day and I tell my wife, and I was just like, so I debated whether I tell this to you right or not, because I didn't want her freaking out when we were up there.
Mm.
And so I told it to her, and she tells her father, and her father is the one who owns the home, lived there for a while, and he says, that could have been Uncle Gary. And Uncle Gary was somebody who lived there, and I don't know, I don't think he passed away in the home, but like kind of he had some things happen to him there where like he passed away shortly after. And so, he was always staying there when he was younger. And so
Mhm.
like, yeah, it became that this is the Uncle Gary story. And he's like, that sounds like him, like the way I described him, the stature, the build, all of that. So
Mm.
yeah.
That's interesting. That's freaky too. In the same way, I'm just impressed you weren't freaked out about. Oh, that's cool.
You
It's
went back
like,
to sleep. I don't know if I
yeah,
could go
Um,
back to sleep after that. Turn on a light and be like, but
yeah.
well, again, not trying to freak out my wife at that point, and
Mm.
right.
we handled it incredibly well. And then we had our friend Chelsea come up the following year, and it was like, "Do we tell Chelsea?" And
Mm.
we shared it with her, and she was like, "Meh, if he stops by, I'll just,
Say, hey.
Yeah.
not today."
Well, kind of reminds me of something else that it's totally unrelated and really not spiritual in any way or ghostly, but it's nonetheless kind of a freaky story. And so we, as a family, decided to go camping down in the Watkins Glen area. And we haven't done that really since our boys got a little older. Um, and so it's been a while. So like I just went online and like grabbed a campsite, bought it, and it was like height of like, Watkins Glen season, right? So it was packed, and we got there and it was not a campsite. This was just like basically it was like an RV kind of place where there was like a little patch of area that you could go that was amongst like what felt like 50 tents. So it just wasn't naturey at all. It wasn't because I grew up as a Boy Scout. It was not camping. Um, and so, anyways, we went through the Glen, kind of went downtown, did all our, touristy things, and then we went back to go to sleep in the tent. And we had this huge, like we were a family of six. We had this huge tent that fit us all. And so we all went to sleep. We were extremely tired. And in the middle of the night, my one son sits straight up and just starts laughing. And he had this, like when he was really little, this really big belly, boisterous laugh. And so we thought, oh, he's having a dream, So he's laughing hysterically, uncontrollably loud. People are like rustling in the tents, And so we're taking him and telling him, Colton, calm down, calm down. Like, wake up, buddy, wake up. And his eyes are wide open and not blinking. All right.
Ugh.
So then I start to go in, like, after I realize he's not responding, he's not listening to me, he's not there. It's just vague, like, look in his face, off in his face. And anything we do say he kept like laughing. Like he maybe paused for a second, like he kind of was listening, but it was like he was not there. So then sheer parent panic mode kind of went into play. And I remember him feeling really hot, and I'm like, gosh, is he feverish? Is he delirious? The stuff, and basically, my wife finally just took him in her arms, and started just telling him like little stories, and he finally just calmed down and closed his eyes and went to bed. But like me, I was up the rest of the night with like, you know, parent like, oh, like, is this kid
What the
okay?
hell was that?
What is
Yeah.
going on? Like we never
Yeah.
really did find out. Like there was things like I looked up medical things, like strange, like, like is this the start of something like really bad? But yeah, we have not been camping with that kid since though. And I think
He
part of it
was,
was like we were just afraid of like keeping everybody up. So,
Yeah, other people.
but
That would that would get me too. I'd be like, uh-oh.
yeah,
You're gonna
these
get
guys,
like some
everyone's gonna be
angry
pissed,
camper.
like shut that kid
Yeah.
up.
he had no recollection of like what was
No,
going on.
zero. We like didn't even remember waking up. Like he definitely like when you looked at him and you like I remember like like you shine a flashlight in someone's eyes and it did not dilate. Like the eyes did not adjust to the light going in his face. And that's like when I'm like, holy crap, what's going on kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
But
And he's never done it since.
no, thank God
Yeah.
that we know of. He's not been uncontrollably laughing, where or in some sort of trance or anything like that. I do remember we
Oh,
looked up a number of things like that were like the power of Google, my friends, that can scare the crap out of you. Um, like looking up what things could be. And there was a number of really serious things that were like, oh my God, do we have to get him in to a doctor? And it just didn't happen again. And he didn't have a fever or anything. He just, to me, like, I think also was in panic mode. So I'm like, oh my God, he's hot. He's a little hot. Oh my God, he's burning up. But yeah,
We-
so, but not, well, probably not ghostly,
uh,
but, it's just weird. So, but that's what I was thinking of when as
yeah.
soon as you was talking about like him popping up and seeing things. But
It's just creepy.
yeah,
there's one of the kids in the family who probably about 2, 3 years ago was suffering from night terrors. And I've never heard someone have night terrors, but where we were, like we were downstairs and he was upstairs and I've never heard a scream like this. I'm not a parent, so like I don't,
yeah,
I don't have that reaction of like, oh my gosh, my child is doing this, but like
hmm
I was scared. I'll
yeah,
take any of these apparitions, spirits, whatever that want to come visit in the middle of the night over what I heard coming out of this kid. So like yeah,
yeah.
that was terrifying.
Yeah, some of our family friends that, have never had kids or, don't have kids there, that is the scariest thing ever is the real children. I'll take ghosts any day. I don't want to deal with real kids. Um, yeah. So, but I guess like I said, he wasn't terrified, but he just terrified us. And if you ever met him, he is 100% into whatever it is he's doing. He's one of those, he's just 100% passion. So 100% happy, 100% upset. So, but he was just laughing uncontrollably. So, but cool. I assume you have a couple more too, right?
I've got we'll call one other one that's
Okay.
a little better, I think. Um,
Awesome.
so I grew up in Auburn, New York, and it was on the outskirts of Auburn. And so where our house was, we had all woods behind us, and there was a cemetery back in the woods. And so we as kids, like we'd go up there. The cemetery was just off the path, and so stones from the 1800s. The tallest tree in the woods was always there. You could see it like as you were coming up. You always knew where it was. It was awesome. It was just like a woods filled with adventures and stuff like that. But as I got older, I would go out there for walks, and so I remember being in middle school, and we were watching a friend's dog, and so took the dog up into the woods. We were out for a walk, and I grew up in these woods, so I had her off leash, and she was sticking by me the whole time, no issues. it's one of those fall days where the trees are kind of swaying in the wind, and so you hear that like the sound effects of the woods are just happening. But at the time it was a great day. And we got to this point where it opens up a bit, and the dog just something switched in the dog. And I hear this low growl, just like it was just like, what just happened? And then the barking starts. And I have no idea what I'm like, there's got to be a squirrel, there's a raccoon that's gonna pop out or something. And then I look through the trees, and probably like 50, 60 yards ahead, I see the silhouette of a figure up by the tree. Longer coat, it's a cold fall day, so longer coat, wide brimmed hat, wearing it, and the dog, like a bat out of hell, just bam, goes running. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm getting sued for this
Yeah.
one. Like, oh, I don't even have a job. Like, I'm in middle school. So this dog just running, barking, and I start running as fast as I can. And I'm like, she's normally friendly, like, don't worry, like everything's okay. So I get to this spot and I can see this figure, like as I'm running in the trees, like the figure is still there, but like sometimes they're behind a tree. Now, a little background is that where we grew up, there's always a myth where you grow up. And so for the kids on in the neighborhood, it was always Jimmy the Hunter. There was this person named Jimmy the Hunter who would go out there, and it was um Jimmy the Hunter would steal you, he'd come away and he'd pick you up in the night. And it turned out that like on one of the Halloweens, somebody jumped out of the woods and tried to assault a group of girls who were trick-or-treating one year. And so we were all, when I was younger, it was like, it's Jimmy the Hunter. It's got to be Jimmy the
That's
Hunter.
terrifying. Oh my
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Um, so I go running up and I get to the spot where the dog is, and the dog is just digging away at the ground, like at the base of this tree, the same tree that I saw this person at. And as I say this, like I'm getting goosebumps as I say this, but the dog is just growling and digging. And so I get her back on leash, and she is just insistent to like go at this tree trunk. Not a single person around. Nobody is there. No one. Um, I didn't see anyone run off because the woods opened up a bit at that point. Like it would have been hard. This person would have had to just fly out of there. And so like I don't know what I saw, but you know, those woods have just always been filled with like the adventures and mystery of what's up there, especially with the gravestones that are there. If anyone's a history person, like I just realized or I just learned that it's a place called Galpin Hill. It used to be used in the Underground Railroad back in the day. And so like there's a lot of history there, but there's probably a lot of also, people who passed away and sadness that happened there. But that story has always stuck with me that like this dog, and people always said that animals have that intuition, and this dog just went for whatever was there, and whatever was there probably was still there as I came running up, but just I couldn't see it. And so
Jeez.
yeah, that was a crazy
That's
one.
Yeah.
creepy. That's
Yeah.
a good one. And what's
Yeah.
funny is while you were telling that story, my dog was growling and barking. And I had to put on myself on mute because she kept growling and barking. And I texted Evan. I was like, please come get the dog now that you're home.
Dog doesn't like scary
So
stories.
like while you're telling, you're like, the dog was growling and Lucy's like, grr.
I have to put less sound effects in then. That works.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Sorry. It was the mic wouldn't have picked her up anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I didn't hear it.
That's
That's a
really
great story.
creepy. Yeah, that was a great story. I
yeah.
just that dog, I wonder if that tree had like significance, like if the guy was buried there or
I wasn't gonna start digging around to find out at that point.
no, yeah,
Um,
no, you're in middle school.
but yeah.
That's true.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I've gone back through there. I've never had an experience like that be again. I've gone up there with other dogs and never had that, but yeah, just that one time, that one day, for whatever happened, like I swear I saw somebody. There was a
Yeah.
an adult figure in those woods that day.
That's
Ugh.
crazy. Yeah. We
Well,
Jess, you ever have your dog bring home stuff?
no, our dogs hate outside.
Yeah. I kind of looking at your dog. I kind of
Yeah, I have two
did
Shih
that.
Tzus. They have no care for outside.
Yeah, we have some really fun, interesting dog stories. All of our dogs were kind of like sort of sensory dogs, like sentry dogs. So like they hear something and like they go nuts. So like
Yep.
it's great because especially now where we live in the middle of kind of nowhere. We know if someone's on our property. We know if a deer is there, whatever. Um, so we had a Shar um, and one time he liked to just bolt out the door. And so one time he bolted out the door and chased down a deer. And it was like in the middle of like mating season. So then all of a sudden the buck decided, you know what? You don't chase me. And so like we see the raisin turn around and start running away from the deer with its like antlers down, trying to nail him. So luckily he was fine. But there was one time we were actually, this is our other dog, Lola. We would go on walks and we had a very long lead to let her like kind of do her thing or whatever. And I think it was the whole family, but it was definitely me and my wife were walking and just talking and totally zoned out. And Lola was like really slow. Like she's a basset hound. She's built like a little tank, but she was just really slow behind us. And I'm like kind of pulling on her, and she's at the end of the lead. I'm pulling on her. I'm like, come on. I'm hearing this like freaking dragging noise. She's got a whole deer. She was dragging this deer that probably was hit by a car, but whole freaking deer. So you talk about scared of things. My wife was like freaking out about that. And like I had to wash the dog, I had to like brush her teeth and all that stuff.
She
So
was just bringing home dinner.
yeah, she's a provider.
She was like, I'm being helpful.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right on. Yeah,
Dad, you could just pick this up for me and bring it home.
right.
Earn your keep.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have any stories around dogs reacting to or our dogs reacting to anything. We got enough animals. It's gonna be hard to tell.
Oh, our dogs always look at nothing. They're always doing that. Like
Yeah.
always. Just especially Moses in the middle of the night and always when Evan's out of town, Moses will always look at the wall away like opposite of our bed always and just follow something every time. And I'm like, "Do you have to do that like right now as I'm going to bed and I'm alone? You just right now?" And he's always looking at it. It's just like part of it. And I'm like, "You know what? Like that's just your it's my protection. You're just looking at like my protectors and like I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't feel anything creepy, but you are creeping me out. You, the dog, are creeping me out. But no, they're always looking at something. But Lucy's blind now, so
Yeah. She's always looking at off into space,
nothing.
right?
Yeah, she's got nothing, in at least one eye. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, those are good stories. I
Yeah. I do have
poor
a couple.
Lola.
I do have a couple stories I got off the internet if you guys want to listen.
Mm-hmm.
You into that? You want to stick around, pretty?
Yeah. I was gonna share though that
Yeah, please share more. You have
I
more?
don't no no I don't have any more great stories or anything like that. But no, the one thing that I think fits for this show is that are either of you familiar with the Warrens, Ed and
Yes.
Lorraine
Yes,
Warren?
Ed and
Hmm.
Lorraine warn you.
So I've met Lorraine twice, and Ed and Lorraine I met once. They came to my college. Ed and Lorraine came to my college once, and I had a chance to meet him then. And then Lorraine came after Ed was kind of getting a little sick at the time. But
Hmm.
I think those were some of the most terrifying stories I've ever heard. Like hearing those two talk about their stories, and I know some of them have kind of been debunked and like not necessarily uh, the real deal, but
Hmm.
the way they talked about some of that, like imagine a group of like eight guys who are, in college, like going to listen to this, and they're like, whose room are we going to camp out in tonight?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, Ed
Yeah.
was a demonologist, right?
Hmm.
Like
yes,
that's a I've said it before, I'll say it again. That is a neighborhood I am not playing in. I cannot, I will not. I, love and light, that's where I'm at. I don't want anything to do with that other stuff. Like that's you have to be like really,
yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
spiritually strong. Like I can't I could never. But I have heard the book, oh God, forever ago. The woman who she was a child of oh, my mind went blank. What house was it? It's
Amityville.
what movie? Is it the Amityville
Amityville,
house?
Amityville
It was
Horror.
it her,
It
yeah. Um it was the child of the mother, and the mother was having an exorcism by Ed.
Hmm.
And like that book is fascinating. I cannot think of her name for the life of me right now, but
Hmm.
the her take on it and how all of that went down, like you said, kind of debunked, but I don't know. Yes, some of it was a little debunked, but some of it was just like spiritual warfare sort of
Hmm.
stuff going on.
Yeah.
It was interesting, and the mom really was hurt the um throughout all of it, and the dad was angry with Ed, and the movie didn't portray it the way that any of it went down. So I don't know. The book
Yeah.
is cool. If I can remember, I'll look it up when we get off the podcast. And Nick, you can post it
Yeah.
10 months later when we
10
actually
months
get to
later.
round to doing it. Sorry,
Yeah.
everybody. We try.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to sidetrack you from your stories.
No, no, that
No,
was a
that's
good. No,
good.
no, no.
No, we like sidetracking. We want to I want to give you every opportunity to talk about what you're feeling about and doing. So
Yeah,
cool.
we like to dabble in other things
Yeah.
and see. Here we
So
go.
much dabblage.
So much to dabble
Dabble,
about.
dabble, dabble.
Exactly.
Dabble this, a little dabble of that.
Mhm.
But I'm glad
Well,
that you like Halloween
yeah.
because yeah, I'm a big Halloween fan and always have been. But it's also my birthday time.
I know.
So yeah, so I think that like, I'm Scorpio and spooky and Halloween's my thing. So whenever I find fellow spooky people, I'm like, "Oh, good."
I
More
think it's
fun.
Kindred spirits.
Yeah.
always interesting, like the way people are with spooky stuff, though, because like I believe in it, and I think I respect it at times, or at other times I'm like, maybe it's real, maybe it's not. The scientist part of me is just like, I think we could debunk that one. But like, I think about growing up, especially having a graveyard in the backyard, and like people would come over and they're like, grab the Ouija board, we're going to the woods and we're gonna do this. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not messing with that. Like some people
No.
are just so cavalier with it. And it's like,
Yeah.
if it is real, like, why are we opening that door?
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
No.
No. I mean, you can use a Ouija board, but you got to put protections in place. And for whatever reason, I've said this before, but I do not like using the Ouija board. I use tarot. I read tarot like quite often.
Yep.
Um, and it's just a little bit more focused, a little bit more private, and I can direct who I'm talking to and like where I'm getting my info from. But when there's a Ouija board around, I feel like it's like kicking a door open, being like, "All right, everybody, come on in. Like, let's see
Yeah.
who's around." It's just dangerous. Don't do that, you know?
Yeah. Where the
Um,
party at?
yeah, it's just a more like it's a tool that like basically just opens the door to a house in a neighborhood you don't know and letting everybody in. And that's
Yeah.
not smart to do. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not I'm not a big fan of that, but I digress.
No. And I
I
don't
get
mean
I
to
go way up on my soapbox there, but
I don't mean to take over by any means, but like
no.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on people who have passed and those spirits manifesting in things that are perhaps still living, whether that be human or animal in some way, or even through dreams. Like I'd be curious to know your thoughts on that.
Like in what way? Just
I bring it up because after my father passed, like
yeah,
cardinals, like on his
Hmm.
property in the yard,
yeah,
suddenly started popping up, the brightest red cardinals I've ever seen. And
yeah,
then my grandfather passed about 6 months after that, and my mom said, like, every time I see a cardinal, I think of your grandfather. I was like, wait, what? Like, because that's how I feel
yeah.
about dad. And so, like, in my mind, whenever I see a cardinal, I'm like, it's kind of that manifestation. Like, he's just
Yeah.
hanging around sometimes.
Yeah, they're signs. I mean, our loved ones send signs, and they could be anything. Um, just cardinals are actually a messenger anyways. They're always like a loved one thinking of you. That's like a very common thing. Like
Mm,
cardinals are messages from our loved ones or our angels nearby. Like
Mhm.
that's a saying. So to send a cardinal, yeah, I think it's because like red just pops out, right? Like you see a cardinal and red pops. And so I think that it's easier for spirit to manipulate that because it's going to catch your eye rather than like a robin who, or a chickadee. You're going
yeah,
to see a
exactly.
cardinal because it's red. And so I think our loved ones do send those things. A lot of people talk about butterflies or crickets, um, things
Yeah.
like that. Those are things that, our loved ones send or pennies.
Yeah.
I find pennies everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, pennies. They're called pennies from heaven. But just like I think it's easier for them to mess with nature and like kind of manipulate nature than it is like, you know, I don't know. I mean, they can mess with electronics too, but it's just not the same.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I do believe that they give us dreams. I've had dreams of loved ones who have passed
Oh yeah.
several times.
Yeah.
Some of them I've shared, and some of them I haven't. They're just too personal. But yeah, spirit will get in touch with you any way it can, and you just gotta like if you're open to it, that's great. And some people, I always feel bad because sometimes people are like, well, I want to see my mom, and
Mhm.
she hasn't come to me. Why? And it's like, I don't know why. But also like sometimes your grief can just be so strong that like you're not open to it, you can't get to it. But like you'll find out later that mom came through to a cousin because the cousin wasn't as grief-stricken and
Right.
the cousin was able to relay a message. It's still your loved one getting through to you. It's just a matter of, it's just the channel of how.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
but
interesting
definitely believe
is
it.
it's definitely not a scientific study here, but
No,
more often than not, people don't know about the cardinal thing. And I've had multiple people
that's
come
funny.
to me and say, after my mom died or after Uncle Harry died or whatever, I just keep seeing cardinals. And then like, oh, did you know about cardinals or messengers? And like, oh no, I never heard that. It's just it happens so often that it's
Yeah.
just like it's kind of like you said, Jess, it's just kind of
Mhm.
weird that those all of a sudden you're seeing those birds and stuff
Yeah.
um
And because
sending a
they're
sign.
perfect, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a perfect sign to utilize or a blue jay too.
Right.
Um Whenever I see blue jays I think of my grandpa.
Hmm.
And when I was pregnant with Carson, I saw blue jays everywhere all the time and thought of my grandpa. And then I went to a psychic that I know, she's a friend of mine, and we were sitting together and she was like, "Hey, just so you know, your grandpa is around your son. He's here for your son." And I was like, "That's so weird," because I've been seeing so many Blue Jays and I
Hmm.
think of my grandpa. She's like, "Yeah, he's here. He just wants you to like, he wants you to know."
Yeah.
It was cool. I was like, "Oh, sweet." Like that's great. I still think that he's around my son too. I think that I can feel him. Um, I don't see Blue Jays as much anymore, but I think he's around and I think he does protect Carson quite a bit.
He's
Yeah.
at a game of
It
pinochle or something.
Who, what?
He's at a game of pinochle or something.
Probably.
I was gonna say that like my father is still with us. He's, still alive, but it's interesting because when I was 5 or 6 years old, he would point out these red-winged blackbirds and like show because it's one of his favorite birds. Like, here's a red-winged blackbird. Oh, those are cool, and when they fly, you can see the little flash of red. And um, I see them from time to time. And it's funny because whenever I see them, my dad tends to call me or text me. And it's like I see the red-winged blackbird, and then a few, hours later or whatever, he's texting me. And it's just kind of weird that that sort of always happens. Um, but like, I've been on the show a number of times talking about like how these networking things that I do sometimes I meet with people and it's just the next person I meet with was the exact person that person was looking to connect with, and it's
Yeah.
just how that things sort of align. So I don't know if that's just because that's that energy that I feel and see at that point, and then all of a sudden I'm sending that over, to my dad. But yeah, I think that you're right, just that like spirits and stuff can kind of connect and um, you know, uh send us little signs and even try to like I think somehow like Jiminy Cricket and that kind of conscience thing might have developed out of those kinds of things. Because there's been times where like I was young, I'm gonna make a choice, and I just feel like, something's telling me don't make that choice. And it's like it's this distinct like grandfatherly thing. And I'm like, that was
Mm.
grandpa telling me don't do something stupid, you know, right? So
It
guiding
very well could
conscious.
be.
But
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. I do like that. I was thinking about that, how you are a facilitator through stuff. And that is a particular energy that some people have. They are
mm,
just facilitators. They're empathic and I think that that's, we know that you're an empath, but just I feel like that is a gift and a tool that kind of manipulates energy around you. Um but Pradeep, you had said something earlier about you look at things like scientifically too.
mm,
And I do too. I think that the paranormal stuff, and I'll say it like I've said it a million times on this podcast, and I will say it again and again. I feel very strongly that paranormal stuff is literally just science that like we have not discovered yet.
mm,
Like stuff that like in 150 years they'll be like, oh yeah, that's just whatever kind of dimension or whatever. Maybe it'll take longer, but I feel like well, we're not spending a lot of money on metaphysical stuff right now, but or any science right now. But I digress on that too.
yeah.
So essentially, I just feel like all of this is literally just stuff we haven't discovered, and
Yeah.
and it'll all make sense someday. So it is scientific. It's just a matter of sensing, feeling at this point, and it feels mysterious, but really it's it just is the way that things
Yeah.
are, which
Yeah.
is cool because it's just there's more things in heaven and earth, right?
Mhm.
Than we could ever imagine. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I now go to you, Nick, and you can tell
Yeah.
a story
We
that's
can tell a
spooky.
story if you guys want. No.
No, I people are gonna come away from this and be like, this wasn't terrifying. This guy's lame. Get him out of
Yeah.
here. He
Your
ruined the
stories were
show.
great. Now we're just chatting, and people are like, blah blah blah. Go to a
Oh,
story.
I know.
how do I skip to the story?
He'll be
Yeah.
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah. All right. So I got a short one and then a little bit of a longer one. This first one comes from an unknown Reddit writer. So it's a, like person that decided to leave Reddit. So it just comes up as, anonymous or unknown. But all right. It was over a decade ago in rural Appalachia. A friend of mine, never speak of this, even though we keep in touch to this day. We just won't bring it up. But we were at a local state park, and it was kind of between 11 and like 1 a.m. I remember we were parked alongside the woods, had some picnic tables. It was a pretty desolate area, and we were kind of technically trespassing at the time. Um, and what we were doing, you can kind of leave to your imagination, but it wasn't exactly legal. Our curfews were approaching, and we're finishing up our special time together, and both experienced a very ominous feeling. He was in the driver's seat and was actually preparing to start the car and pull off, and the car doesn't start. We sort of nervously laugh it off, as if it was nothing, but suddenly to the right, on the passenger side where I was sitting, we see these faint lights coming out of the woods. That ominous feeling intensified, and emerging from the woods were about 4 to 5 younger than us children between the ages of 7 and 11. I'm not going to claim that they had black eyes, as it was really dark and I was pretty shook, but it could not see with the white of their eyes. All I can say is that they were not normal. They did not belong. And the cabins at the park were definitely not occupied. They were not rented out. It was deep into the autumn and early winter, and we were miles from the closest hotel. There were no adults. There's just absolutely out of place. And we don't know what the lights were, but the closest thing I can describe are like glow sticks, as if they opened a package of those and they had like bracelets or necklace or wands. But it wasn't like they were having fun or goofing off. They just stopped, stood there, and stared at us. My friend tried to ask what they were doing here, if they were lost, where are their parents? No response. The oldest looking child was a little bit heavier set with a grayish hoodie on, approached the vehicle just in front of me where the corner of the headlight would be. And my friend, freaking out at this moment, quickly locked the door and said, "Hell no, we gotta go." Kept on trying the car and it eventually gets started. The children still aren't moving, and the kid stays in front of the car. My friend yells at the kid, "I'm going to run you over." And the boy, very slowly, methodically, backs away, raises his arm, and points at us as we're leaving. We didn't look back.
So, like, do you think it was like five kids that were just like, let's go troll these people? And we'll pretend we're zombies and
Right?
just not talk. And we just got back from this Taylor Swift concert and we have all of our jewelry on.
Oh,
Trading
gonna say
bracelets.
it's.
Bracelets.
What do you think, Pradip?
I was gonna say it's Appalachia, so it's a bunch of
Yeah.
moonshiners kids that we're bored. Let's go mess with
Right?
the yokels.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah,
I don't like ghost kids. I just don't think I never think they're actually children. I do not believe that most ghost kids are children. I think they're things pretending to be children, and I'm just not. I'd be shaking and puking. I
Yeah.
just, especially if
why
I
do
was
you
high.
why do you think they're pretending though? Like,
Um, so because I feel like evil things will try to get in touch with you through innocence, and they'll be like, "Oh, I feel bad for this like ghost child." Um, like, have you ever like heard of imaginary friends, quote unquote? Um, and the kid is like, well, Jimmy told me to do it. Jimmy told me to
Yeah.
stab my cat. Like,
Yeah.
and you're like, what the hell? That's not a kid. That's
Laughing
that's a
Jack did it.
demon. Like
Yeah.
that's an evil spirit of some sort. Like, um,
those are the
yeah, I
exact
don't.
words I use to describe children in general. So like, it might be a child. I don't know.
This might be a kid.
Yeah.
Um, you've had bad
Kids
experiences
are
with children.
terrifying, right?
Um, they are, but I just yeah, whenever I think the reason, like a big reason of why I was so scared, I've seen things before, but my that very first story that you heard on our podcast, like the very first episode where I told you like there's this kid standing on the other side of the bed because he was a child just made it like just like 100 times creepier, just 100 times. I don't know why it literally made me shake every time I thought about it, like shaking my gut all the way out to like I could not talk about it. um Took me years to talk about it. It was bad, and I just think that it's like something that's pretending to be something it's not is just, especially something innocent like a child, is so creepy to me. I can't. Ugh, ugh. It's
I think I
gross.
just listened to an episode where you talked about your son had his own experience and he saw somebody, but that was an adult,
An
right?
adult. As
So
an
do you think
adult.
your son would be more freaked out by having another child come to him versus an adult?
I don't know. Um, I don't know. I think he'd be freaked out no matter what. I think he would just be like, no, but he's a sensitive soul and he's an old soul. Like that kid, I don't know. Um, he's sweet as pie. Like just his soul is sweet. And so I think that if anything comes to him and tries to scare him, he's scared. The guy that waved at him or whatever, he was okay, but like once he realized it wasn't his dad, he did, he hid. Because he was like, "Oh, you're not supposed to be here." Um, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think that he would be scared either either way. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. Ghost kids. Blah,
Ugh.
blah.
You guys ready for
Gross.
another one?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
So this one actually is on the paranormal Reddit, and it was about a year ago, and it's from Prince of Dubai. So there's a picture that goes along with it. So he starts
I'm
off and
gonna,
says, "I
sorry.
tried." What's that?
It's just he says he's from the Prince of Dubai. And I'm like, are we gonna send him
Yes.
$10,000 and he'll send us $15,000 back?
You
The
just,
Nigerian prince here.
uh,
Yeah.
Jess, you just broke the whole like end of the story.
Sorry.
How did you
Sorry.
know?
Your get rich quick scheme. Get it out
That's
of
the
here. We don't,
terrifying part.
yeah, that is
Yeah,
the truth.
yeah,
That
The
people fall
swindler.
for it.
Yeah.
right. So, all right. I tried to recreate an entity I saw back in the summer of 2011. This happened in August in the greater Los Angeles area and it was during my first year of high school. I was going through rough times. I was extremely hostile and rebellious, and I greatly worried my parents. There were a few instances where they almost wanted to call the police on me due to my impulsive and negative behaviors. So I used to sleep with the door open back in the day until this happened. I randomly woke up one morning around 1:30 in the morning and I stayed awake looking at the ceiling, wondering if I should go back to sleep or play some video games. While I was deciding to do that, I heard these faint footsteps. First, I was just thinking maybe it's in my head or the sound of creaking wood. I heard the footsteps again, but this time they grew louder and sounded like someone was walking straight to my room. But again, I played it off as just creaking sounds in the wood of the house. After a little while, I noticed something in my peripheral vision. I could see a shadow or an object standing at my doorway. I knew something was right there because I could not directly see into my brother's room, a few feet from mine. Something was blocking that entrance. I glanced and saw the shadow looked humanoid or in the form of a person. I assumed it was my parents checking in on us like they do from time to time. Minutes passed and I saw that the shadow did not move and did not go away. I got curious to see what was blocking my doorway, and slowly the shadow started coming into the light. It was an extremely tall and abnormally thin humanoid like figure, about 7 to 8 feet tall. It was faceless, hairless, bald, and had a fair skinned complexion with visible veins under its faceless skin. The entity was dressed like an old fashioned grandpa would dress. It had cream colored sweater and what appeared to be paint strokes and splashes of colors um, and black slacks. It was just standing there as if it was looking at me. I thought I was dreaming. I started blinking and shaking my head. I even slapped myself in the face, hoping that it would disappear and I could dismiss it as a nightmare or maybe a possible hallucination. After my final attempt to wake up, I stopped and looked across. It was still standing there. I leaned up from my bed to get a closer look, and I saw it had freakishly long arms way past the knee and fell to the floor. That's when I immediately freaked out, pulled the covers over my face. I tried yelling for help, but I couldn't scream at all from the terror that I was feeling. It seemed like 30 minutes later, I built up the courage and pulled the covers off, and to my surprise, it was gone. After the encounter, I ran to my parents' room to tell them what I had seen earlier. Later, after sunrise during breakfast, I was about to tell my mom about a crazy dream I had, and she immediately interrupted me, saying I had gone into her room very early in the morning, petrified, frightened, and talking about the tall man that I thought I saw. That's when I realized I wasn't dreaming at all, and this all really happened. Strangely enough, after encountering the entity, my mother said that I had changed drastically for the better. I haven't seen it since, but a few years later, my youngest brother also saw the same entity kneeling before him, wearing an old fashioned suit, staring down at him. Think about that one.
Nope.
Yep. Nope. Do you want to see
Freaky.
his artist conception?
So before we do, I do, but before we do, it reminds me the way that you described the being, it reminds me, have you ever seen Miss Peregrine's School for Peculiar Children?
Not, actually.
No?
It's
Pretty
on the
have you?
list.
No.
No, it's really it's I mean it's a great movie. But the bad guys in the movie turn into something that like sounds like this. So I was like this child is describing these like I don't know, people,
Hmm.
humanoid things that are in that movie.
Hmm.
But
I was
anyways,
getting,
yeah, let's oh go ahead.
I was just thinking, it first gave me Slender Man vibes,
Yep.
Yeah.
but then I started thinking, have either of you watched the Mike Flanagan shows, Haunting of Hill House or Fall of
Hmm.
the House of Usher? I can't
Yeah.
remember which one it was, but there was one where there was a very tall person, top hat, dressed
Hmm.
as an old grandpa. Uh,
Yeah.
and he would come into the rooms of people and just like I think they hid under the bed when it happened, but
Hmm.
the tall man, I think they called
Yeah.
it. Um, and so yeah, that was the secondary vibe that I was getting.
Oh,
Yeah. I kind of got both of those vibes when I was reading it. And then, like, unfortunately for me, I saw the picture first. I'm like, oh, this is
mm,
interesting. So I'm like, that's what drove me in. So, but
yeah.
here, let me share this and I'll definitely share it with the listeners that aren't watching
Yeah.
along.
Ugh,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm,
kind of Slender
yeah.
Man look,
yeah.
tall man for sure.
I mean, why
Um,
would he choose that sweater?
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
know.
He was
It
painting
does
the living
nothing for
room.
his complexion.
Yeah.
It's
But,
gray. It's
but
cream.
How
yeah.
does he get the
Washes
arms
him
that
out.
long?
Yeah.
Mm,
So we'll
Oh,
have that with us on
yeah.
our social media and with the story. And um, I mean, Pradip, thanks for coming and joining in with us. And
Yeah.
it was
Thank
great
you.
having you on the show. And
thank you for having me.
yeah,
Thanks for sharing your stories. They're awesome.
Yeah. No, I've
Um,
enjoyed listening to you guys, so it's nice to be part of it.
yeah.
awesome.
We are going, how do I wrap this up? I know you like bourbon because I was
I
just your
do.
birthday. You like
Yeah, it's
bourbon.
my faves
So
too.
whether it is bourbon or ghosts, keep your spirits up.
Awesome.